Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next edition of our In the Know webinars from the RSL and Services Clubs Association, brought to you by our good friends at Max. Today's topic is one that's created a lot of interest, and it's due to the fact that, of course, through the COVID crisis, the use of cash has declined even more rapidly than we were anticipating. And it appears as if the gaming industry is going to be the last place in Australia where cash is actually needed to be used to purchase goods and services. Throughout the rest of our clubs and hotels, people are using electronic payment systems, digital payment systems, and cash hardly gets involved in the food and beverage and other services in our clubs. But in gaming, we still have the requirement for the use of cash. Today's session is a discussion session and an information sharing session. So our four speakers, who each come with different perspectives on the issue, will be talking about where we're at the moment, what's the scenario for the future, how long this may take for us to evolve into a new system of payments for participation in gaming. And remember that there is the opportunity for you to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen is a box called Q&A. If you have a question for any of the presenters today, please type that question in the Q&A box, and at the end of that presentation, I will ask the person to answer the question for you. If we have a few questions, we've also got a Q&A session at the end of all four presentations. So today we have four presenters. Anthony Ball, who is the General Manager for Government and Industry Relations at Aristocrat. Most of you probably know him from a previous role he had, but that's his new role, and we're pleased to have him here today. Our second presenter will be Kurt Pahl, who's the State Sales Manager for Max. Our third presenters are Nicole Thomas and Mark Sturdy from TAB. And our fourth presenter today will be Alan Townsend from Banktech. So remember that Q&A box. If you have any questions, please make sure you type them. But it's now my pleasure. I will take down my slides, and it's my pleasure to introduce Anthony Ball to you in his role as General Manager for Government and Industry Relations at Aristocrat. Welcome, Anthony.
Well, thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everybody. Those I can see, Nicole, Alan, Kurt and Mark, and those I can't. Gary, your members out there, it's great to be here. Yes, I'm in a new role now, and it's very enjoyable working for Aristocrat and keeping a very close eye on this particular issue. You're right, it is very topical. Now, forgive me, fellow speakers, if I steal thunder when talking about the context. I'm sure it's not a bad thing if it's repeated. I think I've probably got not a unique perspective on this, but one that can see both sides of it. That is the Club's New South Wales side, or the industry representation side, and also that of a supplier or manufacturer. Look, it's interesting, Gary, you talked about COVID and the situation that we're in and how that is going to affect the outcome, and it very definitely is. But let's just think about how slowly this moves and how long a good idea, that is digital payments, takes to come to fruition in our space. And in our space, I mean bricks and mortar, clubs and hotels and casinos, and I'm talking about obviously poker machines. We've been thinking about this since 2010 and probably before. The technology in one way or another has been around for a very, very long time. But because we're in a challenging space, it takes a long time to get alignment with all of the stakeholders, and most importantly, government. And I recall the first MOU, well, not the first, one of the early MOUs with Barry O'Farrell actually talked about technology and innovation. And now in 2020, that's a decade on, we actually have hopefully the process that will allow digital payments when it comes to clubs to be realised. COVID has been an awful thing, and it has led to great hardship in our industry, But every cloud does have a silver lining. It's actually meant that governments are focused on things that are going to speed up economic recovery and things that are going to decrease touch points between people. And cash handling is one of those. And therefore, digital comes onto their radar in a positive way. And as you said, Gary, the reality is that cash is no longer king. It was for a very, very long time, and it's still a very common form of payment. But I think we all know, anyone who has a 17-year-old boy like I do knows that he doesn't even know where to find the $50 note. He certainly hasn't earned it yet, but they all use tap and go, NFC technology. So look, the context, the history is there. It's all building to this, and I think everybody's keen to see it happen. Look, it's been around in wagering. Nicole obviously understands that very well. We've had digital payments around wagering and other forms of commerce for quite a while, and we're actually seeing some other jurisdictions, particularly Nevada, now putting their mind to the rules that will apply to digital payments and digital wallets. And I'd encourage anyone on the call to go and have a look at the Nevada rules and standards. They're out and about, and they're going to be a very useful guide for us. Okay, the challenge here is that we need to find a balance between sustainability of the industry and the realisation that if we don't allow customers to use digital payment, that they're not going to be our customers anymore. Once cash ebbs away, I'm looking at some numbers on my other screen here. In 2007, 69% of payments under $10,000 were made using cash. Now it's 27%. And at that 18 to 29 age group, you've got 68% of payments in 2007 being in cash, and now it's 12%. Pretty soon that's going to be almost zero. That reality means that we have to fix that so that our industry is sustainable and relevant. Against that, the government particularly is thinking about the usual things when it comes to gambling: harm minimisation, how there is a net benefit, how this is provided in a way that keeps people safe. And I think we are all sophisticated enough now to know that that is a priority that we need to deal with. And the process, you'll hear about the sandbox, no doubt. People can ask me about that on the questions if they're not aware of what the sandbox process is. That will have to balance those competing priorities. Now, we're not the last to come to this, Gary. I heard your comment about us being sort of late to the show, and we are. But in terms of land-based gaming and slots or poker machines, we're not that far behind. You know, as I said, Nevada's just introduced a set of rules. They're quite an advanced jurisdiction. We in New South Wales and eventually Australia are let's call fast second there. We've seen what's happened in the wagering space. Digital payments are pervasive. We're actually now seeing in casinos digital payments happening at Crown Perth, which is a debit transaction at the gaming table to buy chips. So things are starting to happen. And I think the government in New South Wales is seeing that and understanding that the train really now is on the track. And so we will see these pilots and trials, and hopefully we will see that in New South Wales as well. Look, just on the sandbox, and I'm conscious of time, Gary, just give me a 1 or 2 minute left if you can. It's still difficult to do. Okay, the New South Wales law doesn't actually anticipate something like digital payments happening in our space, in clubs, for instance. And so it needs to create an environment that allows things that would be illegal in the ordinary course of business to happen. Okay, so essentially a rules-free zone. And that's really what the sandbox is trying to establish, so that it can be assessed in terms of harm minimisation or efficiency or its ability to connect to all the other platforms that are operating, including the CMS and other things. So that sandbox is really an environment where new technology can come to the party, can be plugged in, and can be tested in a real life situation. That's the key here. You can't really do this in a lab. This needs to be done on the floor in real time so that people can assess whether it's useful and what the effects of it are. And that's really what we're seeking to achieve. And Clubs New South Wales, through the commitment in the MOU, is heavily involved in setting that up. And your listeners today might be aware of some of those things. So the sandbox is important. We're watching it closely, and I think the manufacturers are all thinking about how this opportunity presents. We understand, as do operators and club managers and directors, that we do need to do something. We need to adjust. We need to introduce new technology. But what does it look like? How does it work with what we've got? How expensive is it? When can I get it by? All of these are unanswered questions that hopefully we will see answered in coming months. So Gary, look, I'm happy to take questions. I could talk about this until the cows come home, but I would bore everybody senseless. Maybe best hand over to our other speakers and then answer some questions when they come through.
Thank you, Anthony. I do have a question. You've suggested in the months ahead, what do you perceive, and I know it's looking in the crystal ball here, but how long do you think this process is going to take? When do you think we are going to be in the position where these trials are happening? Because I'm assuming that's what you mean by a sandbox, where we're trialling different types of technologies to see which one government thinks is the best and safest to use. How long is this process going to take?
That is a very good question. But look, I think it's a matter of months, Gary. We're not talking years. And so I think next year, calendar year 21, is going to be the time where we see this really start to move. Now, that's a prediction as I sit here. I'm not in control, but I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
All right, thank you very much. Now, one of the other issues for me, and Anthony understands this role, I'm here as an advocate on behalf of member clubs. One of the big issues that our member clubs are going to be concerned about, and I'm not sure if this is an issue for others to talk about, or Anthony, or each of you to think about, is, well, what's going to be the price of this new technology for member clubs? Every time there is a change in technology, the clubs have to pay. They have to modify their machines, they have to introduce new systems, etc. And, you know, there's a cost there. How will that be managed? And is it going to be an expensive process, or is it going to be a relatively simple and less expensive process for our member clubs?
I don't think it's going to be simple, Gary. I think firstly, need to point out that we still need cash to be available to our punters.
Of course.
So, and in that sense, it will be optional for clubs. They might need to take the technology, whatever that is, early. They may be able to wait. I understand the capital constraints that are always on our clubs, but you know, particularly now with COVID trade being really difficult. So I think there'll be options for clubs. Look, Aristocrat loves competition, so we think that there should be competition in the market to give clubs choice, and certainly that is going to drive innovation and obviously cost considerations as well. So look, I don't have an answer about how expensive it is and what the system will be. I think that's all to be seen. But what we want to see tested and approved is something that is commercially viable. Certainly Aristocrat wants to see that. And for it to be commercially viable, it's got to be bought. So it has to be affordable, and it needs to work for the business. So there'll be principles that certainly drive our participation.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Anthony. And as we said at the end of the session, if there are any more questions, I remind participants, people listening in again, if you have any questions for any of our presenters, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. My next presenter today is Kurt Parle, who's the State Sales Manager at Max. And we have a long and strong relationship with Max, and I'm delighted to have Kurt here. He's about to load his slides, I'm assuming, is to go onto the screen to talk more from a systems management point of view. So I'll hand Kurt, if you want to load your slides, and then I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Gary. Just should be up there now.
No, couldn't see the slides yet, Kurt.
There we go. Got them now.
Excellent.
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity, Gary, to present here. I feel a little bit privileged to speak after the doyen of the industry, and Anthony Ball. And Anthony, I appreciate everything that you talked about there, mainly from your role previously in being able to advise people about Sandbox and what will be coming as part of that. I suppose from a systems point of view, all the systems manufacturers have been in this scenario where they've all exhibited prototypes over the years, but under the current legislation, that hasn't been being able to be developed further until what we see now. What I'm really going to talk to you about is what we can deliver today. And what we're able to deliver today is a cashless and contactless solution. It's pretty much what eBet, for those that probably know the eBet product, which is part of the Max stable, it's what they were the first to market with over a period of time. The main thing that they had is Card It. Card It, there are a lot of early adopters of Card It. It's been out for a number of years. For some people may know it as an electronic version of Tito, but it gave that ability for people to use, transfer funds from cards from one machine to another. Yes, Gary, further to what you were talking about earlier, there's still a need for cash. We still need to put cash into the machine. That's how the current legislation is at the moment. That changes through the Sandbox and what Anthony was talking about. Obviously, this is just another option for people. We have found that the Card It solution is something that has been picked up a lot more by venues since COVID. Trying to remove the tickets here. Tito is still available for people to use, but people wanted their own card to say, this is my card that I'm using. That I'm transferring it from machine to machine. I know I sound like the Anthony Ball fan club here, but you know, Anthony has a lot to, the industry has a lot to be thankful for what Anthony and his team have done over the years at Clubs New South Wales. And one of the key things that they did, which forms part of Card It, was bringing some uniformity so as that those that have been around the industry as long as I have, you know, 20 years, remember that with tickets it was $500 here and $1,500 there, and just having that blanket amount of $5,000 that we're able to transfer through our cards from machine to machine or back to a CRT, which Alan will talk about in his presentation, and has that ability to be able to do that. I won't give a full demonstration of it, but the Card It is just a straightforward. You're inserting your cash into the machine and you're transferring it from there and redeeming it, whether it's at a CRT and or cashiers. Gary, you've talked about the need for cash, but there's also, you know, we know venues do like to utilise checks still in some case. So there is that ability to limit that the contact with cash that people have been concerned with regarding COVID. It's available for every player at your venue, and I think this has been the key selling point for Card It, and it's a key point in clubs in particular, the anonymous card. And the anonymous card just really assists those venues that are in tourist areas, etc., where you have non-members coming in, where you may have rules in play that to join is not a simple, here, join now and are ready to go. It may need to go before boards, etc. It just means that people can utilise that same technology and being able to transfer those funds from machine to machine without having cash. It's still the same rules of the $5,000. It's valid at the EGM for 2 days. We talk about numbers. What we're finding with Card It from an installation point of view is, particularly since COVID, it has just been on the increase. More and more people have less cash in their pockets. I know I do. You're just so used to doing everything from a tap and go point of view. It can be installed in small venues up to large venues. That's the beauty of it, is being able to go across the many different facets of club sizes that we have. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Breakaway. And Breakaway is a format where you've got that card and you can lock that machine. You might ask, why am I talking about this today? It is a similar principle that you're, rather than having to withdraw cash from a machine to go outside or go to the TAB, whatever it may be, you're able to lock that machine and take your winnings with you on your card. The other thing that Breakaway is giving venues to do, it enables venues to actually lock the machines themselves. So you're able to, if social distancing is an issue with tight gaming rooms, you're able to lock those machines yourself and ensure that you're complying with what the regulations have been put in play of one machine on, one machine off, etc. But from a customer's point of view, once again, less cash handling, it's only their card. They know where their card has been, and that in this current environment, that seems to be putting people at ease. It has timing breakdowns for how long you want it to do. Once again, all of these functionalities, and what I'm talking about is obviously what is offered by Max, but all manufacturers offer something very similar to it. So it is an opportunity that you may not be with Max, but I'm sure your manufacturer can do exactly the same thing for you to ensure that you're limiting the risks that are in place in this current time for venues. Gary, mine's nice, short and sweet. I think I saw a question coming from Durban on there earlier, and I think a lot of the questions will probably be directed towards Anthony in regards to the sandbox, etc. But I really appreciate the opportunity to present to all the members on the RSL services. My details are there. I do miss our catch-ups that we always used to have, but by the same token, I can be anywhere at any time for anyone. Please feel free to call me at any time. So thank you once again for the opportunity, Gary.
My pleasure, Kurt. I do have one question that's come in that says, what are Max doing in the digital space, is the question.
So in the digital space, Max is like all the manufacturers. We've had prototypes developed. Those prototypes have been displayed at numerous AGEs. I think I first saw the Max one, which would have been branded as eBet 5 years ago. I think IGT was even longer than that. So we've seen all of those prototypes developed. Further to what Anthony was talking about, under the current legislation, we can't proceed until this sandbox comes up. So there's probably something more for Anthony to give a bit more information on there. But like all manufacturers, we've all been given an opportunity to present to that sandbox and to show our way forward from there.
Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate that. And if any more questions come, we can follow up with them. Another question. Are you participating? Is Max participating in the sandbox?
Yes, we will be participating in the sandbox, Gary. It has only just come out, so it actually came out today, Gary. Yeah, we will be participating. I think every manufacturer will be participating in that.
Excellent, thank you.
Gary, can I just before you do that, just to clarify the sandbox. So a committee was established, and it's called the Sandbox Committee. It's actually called a technical working group. And so that is a group that Aristocrat is not on that. Clubs New South Wales and some others are on that. And that has been involved in drafting up the process for the technology applications that will come forward. So just an important distinction there, Gary, that the sandbox is really made up of a committee, and there will be a process to accept applications for technology.
Right, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. All right, our third presentation is from TAB, and we have with us today Nicole Thomas and Mark Sturdy. Now, TAB and wagering, I think, has been able to do a cashless system for quite some time, so they've got lived experience of how this technology can work. So, welcome, Nicole and Mark. And I'll hand over to you first, Nicole.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you for your time today, and thanks everybody for joining. As Gary introduced, Mark is the head of retail for New South Wales and ACT, and I'm the head of key partnerships for ACT and New South Wales. And we just wanted to present today the lasting effects of the COVID shutdown and what that's meant for venues and what the trends are. Where we are today in terms of cashless and our roadmap for the app and what this means for your venue. Mark, do you want to just go to the next slide? Please. Thank you. The transformation of delivering the TAB product offer has changed from the traditional service, being the venue selling bets from their EBT and Eureka terminals, to a more enhanced experience for the customers that are delivered not only through the app, but other technology that we've heavily invested in the background. Now, again, Anthony, you would know that this takes a lot of time and it's been behind the scenes, but I think what we have created over that period, and it's many years, has started to be fruitful and come to fruition as well. So it's been great. I'm going to start with the app and the digital commissions. Now, everybody should be across this, but just in case you're not, clubs receive a one-off digital acquisition payment, plus the commission for those bets that are from the app, that are downloaded from the app, that are made within the venue. And when that customer goes home or anywhere else except for another licensed premise, that club still gets that trailing commission for the bets placed. So that sort of covers off the benefits for a venue in the short term. But now what we found over COVID is that this was fully enhanced and people just jumped on, one, because we are a trusted brand. We're all Australian. We do have competitors in the marketplace, but they come and go, they buy each other, and they're not necessarily as trusted as the TAB brand. So we gained a lot of momentum over that COVID period that Mark will talk about in a little while. I want to go through a bit of the proximity-based marketing because that's where it starts. So all venues have this geo fence around them. One that does our commissions, it works out the commissions for that digital commission model, but it also assists us with our marketing. Our proximity marketing is delivered to those who have the app and location services turned on and pushes those punters or potential punters into the club. So that's a benefit from TAB to venues, that it's another form of advertising and marketing for them. And we push them into the venue and we'll give them offers for behaviour that we believe needs to be rewarded. So it might be something like, you know, jump into your local and get a fixed odds bet up to $50 or something like that. Over spring, I'm sure we'll see some other generosities such as money back up to fifth place, or we'll come up with something, I'm sure, that'll be very attractive. The customer's experience is enhanced through the use of venue mode. So if you look at the top of the screen on the app, it has venue mode on there. You can view those offers, even if it's red, but you can't punt on those offers unless it's green and you are in a venue. So again, they're very generous, but only available while the punter is in the venue. Another element to ensure that customers receive benefits that are relevant is the use of their data and us personalising their rewards, such as sending a horse racing offer to a horse racing punter and not a sports punter at an amount that they would normally spend. So it's not a spray and pray effect. It is a very sophisticated method that we use, and it is relevant to each punter, making it more appealing to place a bet. In terms of Sky, we have worked hard to become the home of sports, American sports, on 3 new channels that we've introduced just recently, probably at the end of last year, with the view to extend this to ensure that we are seen as an alternative sports content provider. In saying all of that, the whole package is coming together, and Mark is now going to go into the next slide, which shows you exactly what happened over COVID. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to have a talk to you around our cashless wagering. Look, I guess what we're seeing on the slide here is through COVID, a lot of our traditional customers that were betting still through cash were forced over a period of time to basically either stop betting, full stop, or migrate over to an account. What we're seeing now is the growth rate in cashless betting in venues, of getting close to that 20% mark, which is a significant step up. And when you look at where the journey's been, you go back to when we launched digital commissions originally back in, I think it was around 2018. The total digital turnover in venues was about 3% of total wagering for TAB. We're now hitting that 20% mark, and if you look for parallels of other products similar, so when we look at our self-service, which was a major shift in customer behaviour, the growth rate of digital over this last 3 years is quicker than what we saw when we introduced these EBT, the self-service terminals, in venues. Now, to put that into perspective, right now, your self-service terminals are taking close to 75% of all transactions now. And we can see this is the trend where our customers, once you hit that 20% mark, it accelerates because the person you're sitting next to or someone in your group is on their app and they'll be talking about the offers and everything else they're getting. So we're expecting to see this cashless wagering across venues over the next period of time to increase quite dramatically. Importantly, when we're setting ourselves up to make sure as they move to cashless and as they move to choose to bet on apps and the like, they're choosing the good choice, which is the green app of TAB. What I'll talk through here, we've done a lot of work to date around developing our digital product exclusive for venues and how we can create points of difference. This next iteration and where we're now directing our attention to make sure we're in the best possible position, and probably some lessons more broadly that we've picked up from elsewhere, and you know, gaming no doubt will follow suit as well. The first part is around just simplifying the process for putting funds into your account, but also accessibility to cash when you want it. So over the next little while, we're starting to invest in some pretty well-known ways, but PayPal will be integrated into the TAB app and also Apple Pay. That sits on top of things like our credit cards and other methods we've already got. Now, a lot of other companies may already have those. This will just making sure that, you know, as I said, you want to be able to have every single way to make it as easy as possible for people to put money in their accounts. The benefit TAB has as well is the luxury of venues where customers can deposit cash and withdraw cash at the same time. We're also trying to digitise the account card. Once again, this will be quite a large milestone for us, although it seems pretty basic, but that accessibility to be able to withdraw money on the same day you open an account currently isn't there. So if I go into one of your clubs and I open a TAB account, I've got to wait for a physical card to be posted to me, which could take 2 to 3 weeks before I can actually access my funds. And it's a pretty big roadblock for a lot of customers. And you know, you don't want to have your money tied into a place where if you want to get cash and put it over the bar or go to the poker machine room or anywhere else, you need to have that accessibility. So this is all getting developed over the next couple of months and will be coming out to your venues. As I mentioned, it's all about making accessibility and easy access to and from cash to digital, digital to cash, to make sure that if they put their money in their account, it's not locked away there for the rest of the period of time. They can easily get it. They can go into another part of your business to spend it where they choose. The other part we're now amplifying further is around the reward for a customer and rewarding the behaviour that a customer, when they do move to cash, when they move away from cash into accounts, how we can make sure that when they do that, they still choose to go to a venue to do it and they're not sitting at home. We've developed things like venue mode, as Nicole's touched on, but that's really just touching the surface. That's creating some generosity, some money back offers and the like to get you to come there, and once you've got it, there's no real appeal to continue to stay. The next stage is along the similar sort of lines, but it's actually creating enhanced odds for particular races. So whether it's a day of the races, whether it's a particular race, whether it's the whole card, it's got the flexibility. but be able to say, you know, by going into the Foster RSL, you will get 20% better odds on all races in Sydney on Saturday. That will be accessible through venue mode. On the bottom of the screen, this is basically how it's laid out into a venue, that you'll see your normal price plus your incremental price for being in venue. Once again, your cash business is solely in venue. So that's where the customer is going to migrate over to accounts, and that's why we want to create a more value proposition and a reason for customers to go into your venues. Being able to also reward and recognise a customer at the right moment is really, really important. And it's a journey we've been on for a while, but it's really getting very detailed now, and we're going to continue to invest in this part. At the moment, this is about a $20 million per annum budget around generosity to customer. Just to know that at a particular time when they would like to see an offer, and make sure it's relevant to them, and we're not just spamming people for the sake of it. People that we know want those sort of offers, we want to be able to give them the offer, and we want to make sure it's really relevant. So that is in train now. You'll see that in your venues. If you've got the Tab app, I'm sure you're getting messages along the way and giving you these offers. And then the last piece I'll just touch on, which is another piece around migrating as customers migrate from cash to digital, is our venue mode feature, which we've developed. As I did mention before, to date, it's all been about generosity, an increased price, a money back to fifth only if you're in venue and the like. We now are developing a three-pronged approach. One will be matching up with venue food offers or any other offer you have. Obviously, we can't mix it with alcohol. Gambling and alcohol can't be mixed in promotions, but be able to have we'll give you a $50 bonus bet plus a $10 palmy night at the whatever RSL club for this week. So customised offers that match our offer with something you've already got that we can promote people to get into your venues. The other part is around giving them exclusive content that is only available by being in your venues and by using the Tab app. So exclusive tips, exclusive form, and Tab analysis, being able to give customers something that they can't get anywhere else but being in your venue. And then the last one I'll touch on is just around the community connections. Knowing that people go to your venues for social occasions and to be able to connect with people is really, really important. And being able to do that through wagering, in the past, it's been put everyone chucks $20 in the middle of the table when you put a quaddie on or whatever it is through the terminal. We want to replicate those sort of moments through venue mode on the Tab app. So how you can connect customers in your venues and reward customers in your venues for being on Tab versus being with someone else, or betting with cash. So the ones that are choosing to move away from cash, jump into this kitty and we've got something special for you. Being able to follow a tipster in your venue, someone that definitely wouldn't be me. I'm a terrible tipster, but someone might be, they've won the last 3 races, I'm on number 4 for the next, and we can let customers know someone in this venue's won the last 3, he's on number 4, back him in and see how you go. That was a very quick run through of the initiatives we're rolling through. For us, it's really important that we continue widening the gap of when a customer decides to move from cash to digital. We make sure that they've got more reasons than any other to bet with Tab, but more importantly, more reasons than any other to bet with Tab while they're in your venues. That is our ground of, we know we win in your venues. We know that the more value we can, and the wider we can create that gap, the more value we add to your business and our brand to your business. So that's all I have to touch on today. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer questions probably at the back end as they come through.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, Nicole, for that comprehensive presentation. And I remind people that if you want a copy of the slides, you just contact me, email me, and we will arrange for these slides to be sent to you if you'd like them. And we have recorded this workshop. We record every webinar, and they are available for viewing on our website tomorrow. So look out for that. Now, our fourth presenter today is Alan Townsend, who works for our partner company Banktech, but is also within Banktech the manager of their service Utopia Gaming. So I'm delighted to welcome Alan to today's webinar.
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the lucky last to go. And as I think Gary and I think Anthony and Kurt all said, that a lot of the stuff that I can cover today is pretty much reiterating a lot of what has been said. So. Gary, as you said, I'm the general manager of Utopia Gaming Systems, but I also wear the hat of being overall in charge or being of the products for the whole of the Banktech Group. So just to give everybody an overview of Banktech Group, if people don't know, the Banktech Group have got a very good visibility across the board if we have a look at the slide that I've got up, because everyone knows Banktech, they know the ATMs. Yes, we're in the device business, and we're highly invested in cash, as you would expect, because, I mean, we've got 3,500 terminals out there that basically handle cash. But in saying that, and like Anthony said earlier, a lot of everyone's been looking at this for a long time. We also, as the Banktech Group, have Utopia Gaming, and everybody will know Utopia Gaming as the global gaming system. So we have that perspective of not just the devices, but around the gaming systems as well, where, yes, we are also involved with the sandbox, or are looking to be involved moving forward. So we do have that perspective. But the third part, and to us, one of the big parts, is being able to process those transactions in the background. And that's where we have a subsidiary called FTX, which nobody really hears of, but is our transaction processing and payments business in the background. So as we go through, it will, I explain where we come and what we believe is the future for moving to digital. We do, have our beliefs, and hopefully the industry believes, because we've got an overall perspective of the gaming, the cash, moving to cash, the payments, etc. So I know Anthony touched on this, and cash is definitely declining. I mean, we've seen this, we know this, but to be honest with you, it's far from dead. Just looking at it, and I'm not going to go through these, this is a MYOB survey recently, just on numbers, and people still use cash. I mean, yes, cash has bounced back to strongly in June and July, but that's obviously, like Anthony said earlier, is you have to start gaming with cash, and that will certainly change through time. How it will change, we'll go through what we believe could be the possible scenarios. There's some more figures, and this is also quite an interesting one, and this is from the RBA, and both this and the MYOB figures are available on their websites. This is not hidden information. There is still a significant minority of population that continue to still use face-to-face cash. So it's, as we've said, and the other presenters have said, it's declining. It will never go away totally. It'll always be around in some shape and form. But when we look at this slide, and just quickly I'll move on, because as I said, I don't want to hang on this about cash, is if you look at the users of cash and the age group, and I think this is going to influence how and when this change happens to move away from cash, and how quickly and in certain scenarios, people, venues, or are going to move away from cash. So this is available, happy to share more information, but what we do see is it's typically the older population. It's like, I think Anthony said, his 17-year-old doesn't know what a cash looks like. I'm in the same boat, but when you get to the older population, people still like to use cash, and people are still going to, have that opportunity to be able to use that. So moving forward, it's going to be the situation of offering alternatives. I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's not a one solution fits all, and the time frame is not a one date fits all. So when we do look at the transition to digital, look at, as I've said, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just how quick and how much is going to happen. So why do people like cash? So let's just think about this. It is accepted. It's widely accepted everywhere, really. It is anonymous. Certain people like that. It's safe, it's easy to use, and it's trusted. You know, if you've got a $50 note in your wallet, well, guess what? It's $50 and you know it's there. And it's going to be moving forward is what are going to be the biggest things that are going to influence the consumers, the merchants, the clubs, whoever out there to move to this digital form. And what is this digital form? Is it a full-blown, as you can see, moving to a digital wallet on a phone? Is it purely moving money, not necessarily cash, straight onto a ticket? Is it moving money onto a card and being able to use it? Again, and as Anthony said, this is all going to be part of the sandbox. Nobody has got a golden bullet yet. No, I don't believe that anyone can literally say it's going to be a wallet in every venue that's going to be used at a poker machine, etc. But what do we believe are the influences? And again, Anthony, I'll keep referring back to you, I'm sorry, but I think it does make sense, is the regulatory direction. If that doesn't change, well, no one's going to start using the digital. And we know that the sandbox is there and the trial. Digital needs to also mirror the cash, and for that, in other words, people need to be comfortable with using the digital. Are they going to get that anonymous? Is it going to be easy to use? Are they going to trust that they put that money in there, that they're going to be able to use it? Like Mark said, it's an accessibility to cash. You need to still be able to have that money available for you to use. Now, if it's sitting in a wallet, are you going to be able to use it? And I think that's the influences. And then around adopting the technologies of, look, everybody is using some form of digital today in venues. So you're using, people use cards, they use Tito, they use Tap and Go, they use all that. But it's how are these technologies going to work together in a digital environment for gaming? So what do we believe coming across our broad perspective of what we know in the industry? What do we believe needs to be done, or what are these components? So the first thing, as we do say, is the payments and the transaction processing. It's all good and well having a digital system and a wallet. How are you going to get that money in and out of that system? So the integration of that, is it a debit card? Do you move it from your bank account? How does it happen? So that, I think, is the first, or one of the key parts. The next thing is obviously you're going to need devices. How are these devices going to be integrated in the venues? You've got a CRT, but how are you going to get money in? How are you going to get money off? Is it going to, the customer or the patron needs to, be comfortable, and it needs to be easy. You can't bring in a great digital system, but nobody's going to be using it because it's too hard to use. And that's where we come in with the devices. And then, of course, the gaming system. And I think, Kurt touched on this earlier, and Anthony, that this is all happening around the world. The gaming systems around the world can do this today. But it's how, and in our environment, of how are we going to integrate the devices, the payment systems, and the gaming system to be able to facilitate an end-to-end transaction for this customer to be able to use that cash that they rightly own in the venues or multiple venues. And then, of course, as we've all said, the regulatory changes. They need to be clear and concise changes. Otherwise, this will never be a successful implementation. And I think that's the great thing about the sandbox, is it's going to give people, the industry, the place to trial, the place to test, the place to get it right, before we then go and look at rolling it out to any further in the industry. So I certainly believe that that is the way to go. So bridging this divide. So when do we believe, and I know Anthony gave, he believes, the timelines, but what we honestly believe is, the speed and acceptance of this adoption is going to be influenced obviously by the regulatory approvals, because nothing is going to be done without that. And also preserving that attribute to cash of making it simple for these people in these, whether it's the pubs, whether it's the clubs, whether, if it doesn't mimic that and help, I think the adoption rate will be low. So it's got to be made easily accessible for everyone to use. And the other thing around that is it's not going to be one size fits all, like I said earlier. An RSL might have a different solution to a big club that's got a full-blown solution, end-to-end, digital wallet, tap and go, everything like that. So I certainly think that's going to be the case. The availability, the creation and the adoption of this whole ecosystem. So how it's going to be set up. Every provider is going to be working on this, but I know Clubs New South Wales is particularly interested in making sure that we get a unified look and feel, that everyone is on the same page for the customers. And then lastly is the demographic profile. And as I mentioned earlier, is if you have a look at that graph, you're going to have certain areas that you're going to have a slower uptake, depending on the age of people that are around or that are going to that club. For example, I don't know, the RSLs would have a higher age group population that are attending. Is that going to be a slower uptake compared to a pub in the middle of Sydney with millennials? Honestly, I believe that will be. It will be slower. It won't be as quick. But I believe the transition, and we certainly believe in the Banktech Group, the pace of change will be driven by the customer demand. And I know what we asked earlier was the implementation. What's the cost of this going to be? Is it going to be cheap? Is it going to be expensive? Well, if you go if you go the full blow, end-to-end digital wallet, phone, tap and go, the whole, movie, yes, it could be. But you could have the other side, which is not as an expensive solution, where you're literally putting, I don't know, from a debit card onto a Tito ticket, which is not regulatory approved today, but that possibly could be one of the solutions. We don't know. This is all going to come out as part of the trial. So that's where we feel where we are today. We certainly have taken up the challenge. We've been working on this from the Banktech Group for a period of time already. And we're excited. Look, we're certainly excited about getting in there, getting a solution that fits, fit for purpose, not a one size fits all. So, I think that's short and sweet. I think I covered, a lot of other people covered off some of the things that I spoke about, but happy to take questions. And as I said, we're looking forward to it. And I thank everybody for listening in today.
Thank you very much, Alan. I do have two questions that have come on. And the first one is a good question, because I think we've all been talking about the regulator being Liquor and Gaming, who supervises and manages our gaming operations. But is this going to be also an issue where other regulators, such as in the banking industry, have a say? Is there going to be, do we have to justify or explain or get approvals from federal regulators, not just our state gaming regulators, to manage this process? So Alan or Anthony or both of you, can you answer that question?
Yeah, I can start on that one. Look, coming from the banking side, we definitely know, and that's why I talk about, when I do talk about regulatory, there's definitely both sides. For example, you can't, to get money from a debit card into a wallet, for example, or even in a venue, there's all these regulations around or what is it a cash out? Is it a purchase? If you're putting it into a wallet, are you purchasing something or are you doing a cash out? So there's all these things. And that's why we're saying, people, you've got to be careful. You can't pick up your POS terminal in a venue and say, I'm going to connect this into a wallet or into a gaming system and allow people to deposit money straight into a gaming system, because the banking system all works around transaction codes or transaction types. For example, cash out, purchase, etc. on the POS terminal. But then you've got the other side of it, which is this, what we call a merchant category code. So the venues will know that their merchant category code today would be hospitality. So if somebody purchased something, it's beer, wine, spirits, it's hospitality, and they're purchasing food and beverage. But if you were putting money directly into a gaming system, you would have to use a different merchant category code for that. Now, there's regulation. So we would have to obviously put that up, put through the right merchant category code. And what would the banks be sitting there today? And we know the banks at the moment, a lot of the banks don't like being involved in gaming or having bank accounts directly linking to gaming. They could see that merchant category code come up and step in and say, well, we don't like our people putting money straight into a gaming system. So yes, there is definitely what that is down to the nth degree. Obviously, we're working through that. How it's going to fit in with the trials and the sandbox, that will all come out as part of the trial. So I don't know if that gives you a little bit more around that.
No, thank you. I do appreciate that because it is an important point. There aren't just one regulator that we have to satisfy. Now, the second question has come from Durban. It says, under current regulations in New South Wales, is it possible to move money from a bank account to a cashless gaming card or member card outside the gaming room, similar to the way in which you move money onto an Opal card, which you then used in the New South Wales transport system? Obviously not allowing funds from credit cards, but can you do it from a debit card? Anthony, can you answer that question?
No, I wouldn't hazard an answer there. Let me take that one away, Gary. Look, right. It's complicated, and you heard Alan talk about the difficulties in actually facilitating a transaction from someone's bank account into a gaming wallet, or even straight to a machine. These are the issues that need to be worked through. But let me come back to you on that one, Durban and Gary.
All right, thank you very much. Now I'm just checking if I've got any more questions. Yes, another one says, what about AML, CTF and responsible gambling requirements? Well, I think all of those are being taken into account in the sandbox. Am I correct there, Anthony?
Yeah, for there to be anything approved, it will have to tick those boxes, and the responsible gameplay element is really important there. So the government will want to see that punters are protected, and just think about the public perceptions about people using digital payment for poker machines. They need all of those boxes to be ticked.
Yes, and I mean, I think the responsible gambling issue is probably at the forefront of their consideration of this process, so it's very much going to be part of the consideration. Well, I think we've answered all the questions. If I haven't, hang on, there's something else come through. No, will we see further restriction or harm minimisation measures come in? Well, again, I think Anthony's answered that in that will be all part of the considerations of the process in the responsible gambling side.
I think it's possible, Gary.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your participation, and thank you to our presenters, Anthony Ball, Nicole Thomas, Mark Sturdy, Kurt Powell and Alan Townsend. All of your presentations were very informative and very useful indeed. And so I just would like to remind people that if you want to contact any of our presenters. This is their contact information, their email addresses and their mobile phone numbers. If you would like to follow up on any of these questions, I'm sure all the presenters will be more than happy to hear from you and answer those questions. Our next webinar in 2 weeks' time is on the topic of what's new in gaming products and services. So we'll have 4 different companies who'll be talking about the latest innovations and products and games that are being developed at the moment. And that will be on Wednesday, the 23rd of September. So look out for the notices for that webinar. And I remind you all again that our webinars are all recorded and they're available for you to watch on our website, on the RSL and Services Club's website. So please make use of this. Today's webinar will be loaded up tomorrow, and to all who registered today, you'll be sent a link to that so that you can download or watch today's webinar again or distribute it to other colleagues. Thanks again to everyone for your participation today, and again through our presenters. I very much appreciate the information and advice you've provided today. So thank you and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.